Hello everybody and welcome to this week's pre-Christmas vlog. If you give your cat a stick of dynamite, well, all sorts of things. Obviously it's not real dynamite, that would be far too dangerous. No, what this is, we found in the pet store today. Actually, it's covered in cat slather. Bless. Jake's been playing with it and he loves it. It's very, very strong catnip. Quite appropriate really that it should be called dynamite, and that is what this is. So I'm just going to give it to Jake because Jake absolutely loves it. Jolie doesn't really play with these, our ginger cat doesn't really play with catnip, doesn't do it for him, but Jake on the other hand has been biting this and chewing. I can feel because it's slightly moist, so I'm just going to give it back to him. One sec. Lippy cat, lippy cat. Well, it's wet and wild and windy outside. Yes, indeed. A low pressure system, so say the meteorologists, has come over us once again. The same one that brought the infamous St Jude storm, or something like it. Anyway, the point is it's very windy and it's very wet, and people are being told to do all sorts of things to stay safe, and it's probably sensible, to be honest. I was able to get back home without any problems. Miraculously, I saw only one fallen tree. However, that having been said, a number of the roads around here are starting to get decidedly waterlogged, and they tell us that it's going to rain like this all night. Heavy, heavy, heavy. So, fingers crossed it doesn't flood the road, because every time it does, there's a bit down our road that always floods in heavy rain, so the road always ends up being shut. Not a really huge problem, because you just sort of go round the houses a slightly different way. But anyway, enough about the weather. I've just been and done the Christmas shopping. And you know, last year when I did the Christmas shopping, it was chaos. Oh my gosh. First of all, they had run out of potatoes. I mean, running out of potatoes for Christmas. Tesco's! Well, anyway, that didn't happen this year. There were loads of potatoes, sprouts, carrots, parsnips, and all the trimmings, and all the stuff you expect and need and require for Christmas dinner. And fortunately, it wasn't so heavingly busy that one couldn't move, because that has happened before. And you know what? I can't stand shopping like that. It's like it's nobody's fault either, because everyone just wants to get their shopping done, but no one can move because there's just too many people there. In fact, on that occasion, we ended up queuing all the way up one aisle, pretty nearly, in order to go through the till. But, you know, people, and I seem to remember they came around with tins of sweets to make everyone sort of feel a bit better, which I thought was rather lovely, especially because they had Santa hats on, and it was Christmassy, so there you go. And this year, the free chocolate thing goes on, because we ordered our turkey through Tesco's this year, and as a little present, a little thank you, when I collected my turkey about 15 minutes ago, I got a little free box of chocolates courtesy of that nice Mr. T. Esco. Imagine if you built a machine that allowed you to travel to different dimensions of reality. Same world, possibly even the same town, but a different planet, a different Earth, a different timeline. Basically, anything's possible. Well, that's basically the premise of a rather brilliantly conceived little sci-fi series called Sliders, which is a relatively recent creation. I believe we're talking about the 90s for this particular show. And I think it got to about 5 seasons. And I remember watching Sliders when I was very young and getting quite hooked on it. But basically you've got, just in case you've never seen the show, and this is not a spoiler, trust me, because I haven't seen the whole thing yet myself. Basically you've got this rather clever chap who invents this amazing dimension travelling machine, and inadvertently some of his friends, including his professor, end up basically travelling with him. And what this program allows the writers to do is something that not every show would allow them to do, really, without having to construct entirely different planets and sets and stuff the way that Star Trek does. Basically it asks the absolutely time-honoured question, what if? So all those things like, what if, so-and-so had done this, or what if World War II had ended differently, or what if it had been men that would be pregnant and not women, or that kind of stuff, right? All those sorts of questions, some of them quite dark and some of them sort of a bit more jovial. They all get sort of fully explored in Sliders. And what's quite interesting is the way that the show depicts the moralistic situation surrounding each of the different realities, because obviously you've got your main characters who jump into each situation quite literally, landing on top of each other in most cases. They're faced with a world that thinks entirely differently from anything they've experienced. Sometimes the differences are really tiny and subtle, and sometimes they're massive. Like you would abandon someone, for dead for the tiniest of things, or, a world where the only real differences are the small things, but in the end the small things end up being bigger than all those other huge, great big things that you see in other episodes. So it's quite well written. Now the only thing about Sliders, I would say, is that it kind of slid a bit, not necessarily in a bad way. Basically, the first couple of seasons tend to be along the lines of a bit like your Monster a Week, your Star Trek's, your Monster a Week type of episode, or something like that. A self-contained story within each episode, basically. But then they introduce this race of beings called the Cro-Mags, which are sort of like a mutated version of people, basically. And there's a war, and it becomes very complicated and multi-dimensional. I haven't quite seen how that all plays out. I think at some point it probably needs to be unentangled just a teensy little bit. Because the thing about dimensions is, because they all look so similar, to the casual viewer watching, one might think, oh, so where are they supposed to be now? Well, fortunately, for the most part, Sliders does a pretty good job of keeping the narrative constant and meaningful. But it's one of those shows, that I think would benefit from being made into a film. Now, there have been a lot of films about people jumping through time, through dimensions and so on. But Sliders, if you could sort of boil down the key plot elements of the whole series, which are this war with the Cro-Mags, people kind of being, faced with all these moral dilemmas and stuff like that, and the universe and time and space and everything, and if you could boil that down into just one film, as long as it was done properly, maybe in 2 films, I don't know, I think it would work quite well. I think Sliders is one of those gems that just, it's always there in the cupboard, it's always shiny and brassy, but you might just not see it because other bigger, louder, noisier shows are sitting in front of it. Well, thank you very much for watching. Whatever you're doing, have a fantastic week, and we'll see you again very, very soon, because it's very nearly Christmas. So until then, look after yourselves, take care, whatever you're doing, and bye for now.